Good day, my friends. Welcome back to the RAFscents YouTube channel. I'm so happy to see you guys again, and I'm very fortunate as well. Not just because you are so awesome, but because I just went through Hurricane Ian here in Florida. Now, being in Central Florida, my family and I did escape unscathed. A little bit of property damage. Some of my trees were destroyed. I'm talking big trees. They were just broken into twigs. But in terms of overall damage, we are very, very fortunate to have made it out unscathed. People on the coast near Sarasota, Naples, they were not so fortunate. So all of my prayers and all of my love to you guys over on the coast. And if you are out there, please send them your prayers as well. Today we're going to be speaking about notes in fragrances. This is a very important topic of conversation. How do you identify them? What does bergamot smell like? How does amber affect a fragrance? What about tobacco? How does that make a fragrance different from this or that? These are big things to discuss, and we're going to get into it today, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. So before I get started, let me just say that I am not a professional or an expert in any sense of the word. I'm just a guy that appreciates and loves fragrances. I have a passion for fragrances. And so what I'm bringing you is the knowledge that I have gained from lots of personal study. And I'm going to tell you how I study so that you can do it on your own. I haven't had an apprenticeship under some perfumer. I haven't studied perfumery in college or university or anything like that. I'm just a guy and I want to share my knowledge with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you 3 of the most popular notes in fragrances. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about some of the fragrances that do have these notes in them and how they are used. So before we actually start in on the video, let me tell you about how I study the notes in fragrances. I utilize a website called Fragrantica.com, and if you are familiar with fragrances or colognes in any way, shape, or form, you are more than likely familiar with this website. Essentially, it's an online catalog of hundreds of thousands of fragrances that are currently on the market or have been discontinued over the years. They talk about their projection, they talk about their performance, but most importantly, in regards to this video, they talk about the various notes found in these fragrances. And what I do is I actually look at these notes, and you can actually click on the notes on the websites, and it will give you a reference of all of the fragrances in their catalog that contain that actual note. And so that's how I'm going to reference the fragrances in today's video. So the first note that we're going to talk about is the note of Ambroxin. Now this is an actual synthetic note, and according to Fragrantica, it's got a little bit of an ambery dry down. But what we want to know is how that relates to fragrances. So I've got 4 fragrances that have Ambroxin as a note in them. The first one is going to be Mont Blanc Explorer. I really enjoy this fragrance. This is one of those woody Creed Aventus style fragrances that has a little bit of a citrusy kick on the top. But what we want to do is figure out what also has Ambroxin in it. This is how I study fragrance notes. Okay, so this one has Ambroxin in it, but one of the more popular ones, and even the most popular one could be argued, is Dior Sauvage. This is a really good, slightly spicy fragrance that has some black pepper, it has Ambroxin in it, and also has a little bit of a bergamot and citrusy top note. So Dior Sauvage, also with Ambroxin. Number 3 is going to be Prada Lunarosa Carbon, one of the more popular options whenever you're talking about Dior Sauvage, especially. This one has a little bit of lavender in it as well, though. I consider this the more professional of the Dior Sauvages. And then finally, one of the Ambroxin fragrances that we have is Versace Dylan Blue. This is a little more sweet. It has the Ambroxin in it, but it also has a little bit of a deeper, sweeter, ambery type of influence on this. as well as some of that citrus on the top. But when you take all 4 of these fragrances and you think to yourself, what is one thing that they all have in common is Ambroxan. So you can kind of start smelling all of these. There's 1, there's 2, and you can start finding those similarities, and then you can use that comparison and apply it to other fragrances. That's exactly what I do. Next up, I'm going to talk about vanilla, one of the most popular notes in fragrances. It's usually found as a base note in fragrances that are most popular in fall and winter time. Now, I hope you've been paying attention because I've been saying things like generally and usually. That means it's not always the case, and that's what's going on in this first fragrance I'm going to talk about, Chanel's Allure Homme Sport. I'm probably going to be smelling this as I'm talking about it a lot because I really enjoy this. This is an aquatic fragrance. It's got top notes like mandarin orange, some C notes, aquatic notes, aldehydes, things like that. But, like I said, I really enjoy this one. When it dries down, it starts getting this vanilla tonka bean type thing. It's very sweet. It kind of has like this, this vanilla custard type feeling whenever it dries down. I usually recommend this to folks who are in the gym a lot, who sweat a lot, are athletes. This is a great option for those of you guys that want to really smell very pleasing and very attractive. It's most popular in the spring and summertime, not the fall and winter time. But you could argue that. And by the way, if you're looking for a more affordable option to this, you can find that in Versace Pour Homme. It's very, very close to what's going on here, or Missoni Way, from what I hear. The next vanilla fragrance is going to be this vanilla bomb, Armani Code Absolute. There we go. This is another vanilla fragrance that is actually most popular in the fall, winter, and early springtime. But while it is very sweet, it has this added note of suede. I've talked about this before, but that suede is a note that is a little bit more dry. And because it's so dry, it takes away from the depth and the concentration of that vanilla and makes this a lot more office safe and a lot more safe for formal events. And so this is another good option that you can check out for vanilla. And then finally, one of my favorite fragrances, if you're looking for something that's got vanilla, but is also kind of a bad boy type vibe, we're going Azzaro Wanted by Night. One of my first fragrances that I still have an intense love for to this day. It has notes like mandarin orange, some cinnamon, tonka bean, vanilla, and tobacco. This is an all-around amazing fragrance that's not too terribly expensive, but the vanilla gives it just enough sweetness to make it appealing, but it doesn't overpower the fragrance at all. It gives that mandarin orange and the tobacco a good chance to shine, and especially with that cinnamon in there. Cinnamon is a hit or miss type of note for many people, but it's used perfectly in this fragrance. It gives it just enough spice to give it that edgy feel. So Azzaro Wanted by Night, and those are your vanilla fragrances. Now, the last fragrance note that we're going to talk about is one of the most popular amongst male fragrances, but it is also, in terms of ingredients, one of the most expensive, and that is the note of oud. Now, oud is a very intense and very pungent, woody type of fragrance, and in reality, oud is actually a type of tree fungus. They harvest the fungus and put it into fragrances, but these days about 99% of fragrances actually have a measurable amount of oud in them. Most of the time it is synthetic, but that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy them. These days, oud fragrances are generally thought of to be more for the refined gentleman type of guys. But that's not always the case, as you'll see in this first fragrance, which is John Varvatos Oud. John Varvatos Oud, you definitely have that woody note up front, but the thing is, it has some very spicy notes in here that kind of give it an edgy, a little bit of a bad boy vibe. I really like this one. In terms of oud, this is actually my first oud fragrance that I ever purchased. I really do dislike this bottle presentation. It looks like mesh. Check it out. It looks like mesh, but it's actually some type of cheap plastic, you know. But it is affordable, right around $60-65 if you shop online. And I say affordable because in terms of oud fragrances, that's decent. Okay. The next fragrance I'm going to talk about is another little spin on oud. It is Hugo Boss Bottled Oud. Now this one, the oud is definitely there. You can smell it right on the top, but it also has a little bit of fruitier notes in there. I believe apple is one of the main notes in here. Gives it a little bit of a sweeter type of vibe. Not everybody is down with this type of fragrance, but if you're looking to get into oud, I think this is a good starter fragrance for you, okay? It's not overpowering. You definitely get the woody feel in there, but it's not going to be a punch you in your face type of fragrance. This is going to be good enough to give you the feel of what an oud fragrance should be without having you drain your bank account, without inundating you into the crazy world that is really deep oud. Because a lot of times oud fragrances are mixed with floral notes, and I myself, I'm not a big fan of those. But one of the last fragrance we're going to talk about is a niche fragrance from the house of Thameen. It is Carved Oud. I actually was gifted this bottle by Your Perfumes here recently, and I love this fragrance because this type of oud fragrance actually has some earthy notes in there. I'm talking things like patchouli and patchouli and lily. And what that does is that it adds a depth to this fragrance that is unlike one of those typical type of woody, dry fragrances. I typically think of this one when I describe it to people, that you're smelling like you're sitting beside a small creek. You can smell the wood in the air. You can smell a little bit of the earthiness, and you can also smell, like I consider it to smell like river rocks almost. I think it's a really, really gorgeous fragrance. The performance is definitely there, but you got to be ready because this one does come at quite a high price tag, right around $200, $250. But it is a great fragrance, and this is another good oud fragrance for those of you guys that are looking to explore this particular note. So there you go, oud. And there you have it, guys. All of these fragrances have that one note in common. At least some of them have multiple notes in common. The real way to find out, go to that website, fragrantica.com, and look through the notes that you will find in these fragrances. You can actually click on these notes and it will show you other fragrances that have these notes in them. And you can compare, you can contrast. It is a really cool journey to go on. And that's how I personally have learned about how to identify the various notes in these fragrances. And I'll be straight up honest with you, I have a long way to go. But that's one of the reasons I love having these social media channels, is because I love to take you guys on that journey with me. In the meantime though, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Go and find me on all of my other social media channels. And if you get a second, please consider donating to my Buy Me a Coffee or shoot me a few bucks in my Cashapp. I would love to get this YouTube channel fully funded one day so that I can do this full time. I love you guys. I can't wait to see you next time. Take care.